All right. Sorry for the delay, everybody. I lost track of time a little bit. No, so it was after 3, so I jumped on here. Sorry about that. All right, we'll go ahead and get started here. If you got your questions, go ahead and post them. Should be below the video if you're on a smart screen, to the right of the video if you're on a larger screen. Looks like we got a couple questions in here. We'll start with Ed B. All right, so Ed B says, in my golf swing, I look at a point on the inner back quarter of the ball. At what point in the downswing do most good players look up to track the ball flight? I would say the majority would be when the shoulder is like coming through and they come up. Because if you look at most play, now there, it doesn't mean all. So this wouldn't be like a universal truth. And to be honest with you, it's probably not even something you need to worry about. Unless you feel like it's causing a ball flight and contact issue, how your head is coming up. But with most players, typically what I'm going to see is their head's here, right? And then basically once that shoulder is kind of working through, that's when they start coming up. But there are absolutely players that do not do that. There are players that aren't even looking at the golf ball when they're hitting it. David Duval, right? Annika Sorenstam. These are both, at one time in their life were the best golfer in the world, right? So obviously it can work really well. If you look at videos of their swing, you will see David Duval like that at impact. Annika Sorenstam be like that at impact. So clearly it's not incredibly important in the grand scope of things, but that doesn't mean that it's not important on an individual basis. So basically what that means is you got to play around with it to find what works best for you. It's not a universal truth, meaning it's not something that I see every single good player doing. The universal truths in golf are really the top speed golf system, right? That's what we see every single player, whether it's David Duval, Annika, or it's the new number one Nelly Korda or Scotty Scheffler. Like if you look at those, I haven't noticed this in their swing, but I would venture to say they're probably players that are kind of like right here, and then when the shoulder gets there, they start coming up, right? Now, when I see golfers that really try to focus on keeping their head down like that, oftentimes they stop their body, and that's not what we want to do. We don't want to have a move that looks like this, right? That's not what we want, right? So if you're going to focus on keeping that head down, right, we got to keep the body moving. That's what we see the best players do, right? The body is always moving through, whether their head is like this or it's still there. The body's still moving through, right? So, and that might be, I don't have any personal experience with Annika or Duval and the reason why that they do that. I don't have any insight on that, but it could be part of I've seen Dustin Johnson do it as well. It could be part of the reason why they turn their head is to help kind of release their body, right? Because if you really focus on keeping that head down, sometimes it can stall your body. So you just want to make sure that if you are really trying, if you focus on keeping that head down, to keep the body moving, let the body continue to rotate through. Don't let the head staying down stop the body. Keep the body moving through, and the body moving through allows the head to come up. To be honest with you, in my experience, I just found it's just not something that's worth thinking about. If you don't have a ball flight or contact issue that is directly related to how your head is coming up, then you're just kind of worrying about something that isn't something that's worth worrying about, right? So, but just to answer your question, most of the best players that I see have the head down well after contact, but the body's still moving through. And then once that shoulder gets there, the head releases up. But there are elite players that have their head up before, aren't even looking at the ball before they even hit it. All right, so John C says, hi Q, I have difficulty setting up and hitting chips where the ball is above my feet on a down slope. What adjustments should I make? Thanks, John C. That's just a difficult shot, especially if it's like a delicate chip. But really, what we want to understand with slopes, whenever you're hitting off of slopes, the key is to go with the slope. So what that means is that if I have a downhill lie, I want to angle my body with the lie, and I want to swing the club with the slope, right? If I have, so maybe this would be kind of a good way to visualize it, right? So if you imagine this is the arc of the swing, if I have a level lie, right, that's kind of how I want it to be. You know, where the tape is here, that's kind of where I want it to be. Now, if I have the lie is like this, right, well, now the bottom of my swing's way forward and above the ground. If I swing this way, I'm probably going to top the ball or chunk it, right? Same thing here. I'm going to just stick my club into the ground before it. So what I'd want to do is I would want to angle it upward, right? If I had it like this, I would want to angle my arc downward, right? So that's essentially what we want to do in the golf swing, right? If I have a level lie, I might kind of be like this, right? If I have a downhill lie, I want to angle my body with it, right? If I have an uphill lie, I want to angle my body with it. Now, things to understand when we have an uphill and downhill lie, that is going to change the loft of the club as well, right? So if I have an uphill lie, that ball is going to come out higher, right? And we need to keep that in mind when we're hitting the shot. The ball is going to come out higher. It's probably going to land softer. So we need to play that into the shot, right? I see all the time, I see recreational golfers that have the uphill lie. The ball comes out really high and it lands soft, and it ends up being pretty short of the hole, right? Same thing goes if I have a downhill lie. It's essentially de-lofting the club. It's going to come out lower than what you would expect, and it's going to tend to run out more. Excuse me. Again, I see it all the time. Recreational golfer, downhill lie, they hit it. It comes out hot, right? Because it's more de-lofted. They end up running it by the hole. So keep that in mind. You got to, again, these are things you have to practice. I know these aren't the easiest things to practice, but I try to find a way to be able to practice it, so that way you can understand it. Maybe if you go out, on an evening, there's not hardly anybody on the golf course, and you can just, sit on a green for a little bit, or on a hole that has, some of these uphill and downhill areas, and you could hit a few shots just to kind of see, okay, how's this ball coming out, that sort of thing. Because I can tell you to go with the slope all you want, but these are things you have to practice them. I mean, it's just what it comes down to. So go with the slope. Same thing goes if the ball is above your feet. What we want to understand is when the ball gets above our feet, that closes the face, right? So if you look here, this would be like a level lie, square face. You see how the face is pointed directly toward the wall. Now, if I were to now have the club the ball above my feet, now look at where that's pointing. That's pointing more to the left, right? If I have the ball now below my feet, which is going to raise the handle, right? So I'm going to be more like that, right? Now the face is pointing more to the right. So if you ever have a shot, I mean, depending on how severe it is, right? You got to aim for right-handed golfer. You got to aim a little bit more to the right, because it's gonna come out to the left, right? If I have a ball below my feet, I got to aim to the left as a right-handed golfer, because the ball is going to come out more to the right, generally speaking, more than it normally would, because of the handle being higher or lower, right, relative to where the ball is. So go with the slope. That's really, really what it comes down to. There isn't any other crazy adjustment you have to make. Just adjust your body with the slope, and then hit the shot that is dictated by the slope, right? So if I have, what's a really, really tough shot is where you have a downhill lie, right? And, let's say it's a severe downhill lie and you're short-sighted, right? That's just a tough shot. It's going to be tough, pretty tough, unless you have like really soft conditions. It's just a tough shot. I mean, the best players in the world are going to have a hard time a lot of times getting that really, really close. So you just have to keep that in mind whenever you're working on these things, is that it's You just got to go with the slope. So adjust your body with it. I know on Top Speed Golf, we talk about we want to be 68 degrees angled away. Well, that's on a level lie, right? So you're 6 to 8 degrees relative to the lie, not relative to where universal level is, right? So if my lie is angled forward, my body's going to be more angled forward. All right, let's keep going. So Steve B says, what are your most favorite and least favorite things about Bryson DeChambeau's golf swing? I can't say that I have anything that's like the least favorite. I am a very large proponent of swinging your swing. There is no one swing model. And that's kind of what Top Speed Golf is all about, right? Top Speed Golf is all about, basically the things that we see all the best players do. And everything else is kind of your own, is swing your swing, right? If you look at pro golfers, right, they're all doing the Top Speed Golf system. Every single one of them is doing an A+ job with the system, right? But they all have very different looking golf swings. You look at Scotty Scheffler, and you look at Tiger, you look at Adam Scott, you look at Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, Dustin Johnson, all these golfers, you look at all of them, they all have very different looking golf swings, but what do they all have in common? The Top Speed Golf system. Bryson DeChambeau, what does he do? He does the Top Speed Golf system to a T really, really well. So I don't really have anything that I don't like about Bryson's swing. Things I do like, he gets a full turn. He really controls the arc really, really well. Those are kind of really, really the main things. He doesn't hold back, right? He likes to get it out there. He plays the game in a more of a modern way, I would say. And when he's on, he tell you what, he is tough to beat. We've seen it when he is engaged and he's on. He's really, really tough, right? So, and I like that he's innovative, right? If you look at his swing when he, won the college, he was the medalist for the college thing. I think he won the college national title or whatever at SMU. And even at his beginning of the tour, his swing was very different. So what I like is that he's innovating and he's not afraid to change anything. Whereas, if you I haven't had the pleasure of working with pros, but I've heard stories and things like that. They're very stubborn and they're very resistant to change. Bryson is not. He's very much the opposite. If he thinks that something is going to give him an edge, he will try to make that happen. And from everything that I've heard, he's about as hard a working a guy as there is out there. And if you're going to be like that, right? If you're going to be someone that is going to try to change things and is constantly tweaking things, you have to be hardworking, because you can't, you can't half effort that, right? You have to be full effort on that to be able to do that. So that's what I really like. That's not necessarily about his swing, but that's more about who he is and things like that. Obviously, he's had a personality in the past that I think has rubbed people the wrong way, but I think that he was a young guy. And I tell you what, if I was that age and I was super famous, I'd probably rub people the wrong way as well. I think he's really matured in the last couple years, since being on Live, to now, and understanding how people view him and things like that. And I think he's got a sense of humor about it, and I think he's got a much better attitude. And it showed in I was rooting for him. There was a time when I wasn't really rooting for him because I didn't really like his attitude out there. And but that's changed. It's definitely changed. And I was rooting for him to win the when he was in contention there. I was happy to see him win that. So yeah. But yeah, there's nothing about his golf swing that I don't like. To be honest, it's really, I just like how it's constantly evolving and he's not afraid to change things. and he's nailing the top-speed golf system. Shallows the club really well. Does all those things really well. Goes for speed. Plays in a modern way. So that's what I like. All right, let's keep going. So Ed B says, I'm having trouble doing the sumo step and catapult move, which turns the sole of the left foot towards the target. So those are two different drills. So I wouldn't be trying to do them both together at the same time. Do work on one and then work on the other. So that might be part of the problem. Can you give me a little bit more? Because I'm not sure what you want me to tell you that you're having trouble with the drills. What exactly are you having trouble with? So yeah, give me a little bit more information, and I'll try to help. But with that information, there's not really much which I can really tell you. That you're just having trouble. That's super vague. I'm not sure what I'm what I'm supposed to tell you with that. All right, let's keep going. So Graham C says, hi Q, I've been told that I come too far from the inside with my swing. Does this mean that I am shallowing the club too much? Can you please clarify for me? Thanks, G. Well, your ball flight will tell you that. I would trust the ball flight over what somebody else is saying. So I would say if you have a miss, a block hook miss, meaning like a two-way miss, because that's what comes from over shallowing out the club is a two-way miss. If you hit the ball straight or you hit a little baby draw like you like to, if you like to hit a little baby draw and that's what's happening, then I would say you're shallowing out the club perfectly. But if you are blocking shots, let's say you're right-handed, you block shots out to the right, because that's essentially what happens. If your club is working too much from the inside, you don't have a lot of margin for error for that club face, because if the club face is not closed enough, you're going to block it out to the right. If it's too closed, you're going to hook everything, right? So if we can get that club path to be a little bit more neutral, if the face is a little bit open, it's not going to miss as far to the right. If your club face is a little bit closed, it's not going to miss as far to the left. So that's really what it comes down to. So as long as you don't have that block hook two-way miss, you're not shallowing out the club too much. If you do, then you're over shallowing out the club, and you may want to work on things that help you to kind of neutralize that, right? The good part is that you're in a great spot. I would much rather have somebody that is over shallowing out the club than coming down steep, because when you're coming down steep, there's typically more things that you need to do to be able to get to like a high level impact position. But if you're shallowing out the club already, let's say you're shallowing out the club too much, all you really need to do is add more rotation, right? Or add steepening aspects to your swing, right? And it's much easier to add steepening aspects to your swing than it is to add shallowing aspects to your swing. So what I would say is, if you are someone who is over shallowing out the club, which again, your ball flight is going to tell you that, somebody's opinion is not really, I'll tell you right now, unless it's so obvious, it's very difficult to just watch somebody swing and say they're shallowing it out too much, right? So, and the other thing is, if you kind of have the club, because this is a fairly common thing. Let's say you have the club laid off, right? And then so if it's like if it's something that looks unconventional, then it can also make it look like a different thing. So one thing would be like having it very laid off, and then you actually steepen the club a little bit, but it may look super shallow at the top of the swing because it's very laid off. John Rahm is a good example of this. If you look at John Rahm's swing, John Rahm is like this at the top, super laid off, right? Extremely shallow. But when he comes down, the club actually steepens a little bit as it's coming down. But it's still shallow, but he's taking it from an extremely shallow position to a less shallow position. In order to do that, he actually work in the steepening direction, right? And then if you look at somebody like that has like a longer swing, like a Bubba Watson, right? He's up here across at the top like a John Daly, and then shallows out. He has a big shallowing move that gets it there. Or like a Matt Wolff, who's like this, right? You might say, oh, they're shallowing it too much. No, they're shallowing it perfectly. So I wouldn't buy into somebody's opinion. I would actually let the reality of your ball flight dictate whether you're shallowing out the club too much or not. So like I said, if you are shallowing out the club too much, I would try to add rotation of your body. So work on flexing those hips to start the downswing, right? And staying in your posture and rotating through it more, because that can neutralize your club path. Because if you're going like this, it's too shallow. Typically people who are too shallow are standing up. They're going like this because that shallows out the club, right? If I stand up and move my hips forward, upper body back. So if I'm shallowing it this much, which is a ton from doing that, if I'm here and then I stay in my posture, well, now look, that club works down really nicely down to the ball. So if that's what's going on, I'd work on flexing those hips to start the downswing. What flexing the hips means, it just means making the angle between our lower body and upper body smaller. So this would be flexing the hips. This would be extending the hips, right? So that's what I would work on. All right. So Charlie says, hi Q, I have no difficulty getting out of greenside bunkers with a 58 degree using your technique. Low hands, wide stance, open face. However, my ball goes a little lower and further than I would like, e.g. far end of green. I don't want to make a smaller swing. Should I get a 60-degree wedge? I would try to keep the loft on the face, right? Because what you might be doing is you might be rolling the hands over instead of kind of keeping the loft on the face, right? So using a weaker grip can help you with that, but also how you kind of release it. So generally, when we release the club, we're kind of letting the forearms kind of turn over. We're kind of having like a passive release where we let the arms, if I have a passive release where I'm not like trying to do anything, I'm just letting the momentum of the club head turn over, right? You can see how my hand kind of turns over. Well, if we do that in a bunker shot, that can close the face too much and then get the ball to go too far, right? So what I would try to feel like, or make it go too low and too far. So what I would try to feel like is that you're keeping the face open. So instead of letting the hand go over, I try to feel like that trail hand stays underneath and that the club face, like you're looking in the mirror, right? So if there's a mirror on my club face, I'd be able to see my face in it. If I'm coming through and I'm releasing it like that, I can't see myself in the club face. I want to release it like that, I can see myself in the club face. So that's what I try to feel like to keep the loft on the club. I'd also stand a little bit farther away from the ball, right? So if you stand too close, that de-lofts the club a little bit, right? If I stand farther away, that adds loft, right? So if I stand farther away, that can help me to, and get the hands lower, that can help me to get the ball up, right? I'd also look on video to make sure that you're actually doing these things, because feeling like you're doing these things is different than actually doing them, right? So you may need to look at yourself on video to make sure, okay, am I actually getting my hands low when I'm coming into contact? Am I actually standing far away enough from the ball? Am I actually keeping the face open as I come through contact, right? And also, you're not going to have the same length swing on every bunker shot, right? If you have a shorter bunker shot, you need to take some off of it. So I wouldn't have the mindset that I don't want to take a smaller swing. You may have, what may be going on is you may have perfectly good technique, right? You may be doing all the things that you're talking about and everything that I just talked about. You may already be coming through and releasing it great. But, if you just come in and do full blast bunker shot, it's just going to go one distance. And you may have found what that distance is, right? So you may just need to take a smaller swing. You may not want to do that, but there's not really another option, right? If your full blast bunker shot goes 20 yards and you want to hit a bunker shot 10 yards, right? The only way that that's going to happen is with less speed. Now, what you could do is take a fuller swing, but a slower downswing. But in my opinion, or in most cases, I would say that's a more difficult thing to do than keeping the same rhythm and tempo and just taking a shorter swing. Because if you take a shorter swing with the same rhythm and tempo, you're going to have less speed at impact. So yeah, you don't be afraid to change the length of the swing to make the ball not go as far. That may be something that you need to do. So don't be afraid to do that. Because otherwise, you're just going to have to kind of live with the fact that the ball is just going too far. All right, keep questions coming. We got about 30 minutes or so left here. right. Just a reminder, if you're just jumping on here, just waiting for questions to be asked. So if you got a question, feel free to ask. If not, no worries, no big deal. If you're just jumping on the office hours, I'm just waiting for questions to be asked. Don't have any more questions at the moment, so feel free to ask. Got about 15 or so minutes left here. All right, how do you start the downswing? So the key to starting the downswing is to start it from the ground up. And what I like to feel is I like to feel a little bit of an increased pressure into that lead foot, right? So think about it this way. I think a lot of people can resonate with this because a lot of people played some sort of baseball at some point in their life. And if you didn't, that's okay. This is fairly intuitive to get. So if you take the club and you hold it like a baseball bat, right? Now, if you imagine if I were to wanted to start my forward swing with the bat, right, in order to be as powerful as possible, I want to get my momentum forward, right? I want to turn my back a little bit to the pitcher. I want to get my momentum moving forward. I want to get into the ground, and then from there, I would start pushing into the ground to start opening up my body, so that way I can really release that bat into it, right? And I want to hit it right there. Right? When you look at the best baseball players, you know, if you ever watch the home run derby, they do the super slow motion, you know, of the bat. Usually what you're going to see is a look like this, right? Where they're hitting that ball out in front of them. And you'll usually see they'll stride forward. Some of them don't do a stride forward. Some of them will kind of already be wide, and they'll just kind of move into that, right? And then open up. But it's the same thing in the golf swing, right? When we're bringing that club up, I want to essentially have some momentum moving forward to put pressure in my lead foot. And then from there, right, I want to start that downswing as I'm coming down. So a great way to kind of get the feeling for this is to do like a baseball step, right? So what I would do is I would start out just like I was talking about with almost the baseball bat stance, right? And I would just do some strides forward and get that feeling, get that same kind of sequencing and feeling, right? Then what I would do is I put the club in the hands, take your normal golf grip, and I would just do the same thing, right? I would get a little step, I bring it up, and as I'm bringing it up, I want to do a little step forward. I want to push in the ground and then come all the way around into a full finish, right? Once I've done that, and I got a good feel for that with the proper sequencing, pushing into the ground, that's what's kind of leading everything, right? Once I'm able to do that, I'm going to take a normal golf stance here, and I'm just going to do a practice swing where I replicate the same thing. Oh, got a rogue hula hoop behind me here. And I'm just going to replicate that same thing. I'm going to load into my trail side, and then as I'm loading into my trail side, as I'm getting up to the top, I want to start moving into my lead side. I want to feel that pressure in the lead foot. I'm going to push in the ground. I'm going to brush the ground and come all the way around to a full finish. Once you're able to do that, I put a tee in the ground. Do the exact same thing. Clip that tee. Don't worry about clipping the tee before that, but once you put the tee in the ground, focus on getting that proper sequencing. Clip that tee. And what I would do through the whole process is I would get 10 in a row good ones, right? Because if you get 10 in a row, that means that you're good at doing it and you're ready for the next step. So I start with the baseball swing, get 10 in a row doing that. Then go doing it more like a golf swing, get 10 in a row doing that. And then go to the normal stance. We're just focusing on brushing the ground. Doesn't matter if it's farther away from you or closer to you. All you're trying to do is just brush the ground. Get the same sequence. Get 10 in a row doing that. If you do 5 in a row good and you do a bad one, start over. Get 10 in a row. You got to make sure that you're good at it before you move on to the next step. I think that's a big mistake that a lot of people make is they just try to take what an instructor or myself is telling them, and then they just try to go full blast, and then there's like, well, I can't do it. Well, the reality is you can do it. You just didn't take the necessary measures to be able to do it. We have to regress things to where we can actually do them and then progress them from there. You may not be able to get the feel for this right away, full speed, with golf ball, all that stuff. You gotta have to work from something you know how to do and then build it toward what you're trying to be able to do, right? So again, once I'm able to do that and get 10 in a row where I'm feeling that pressure in the lead foot to start the swing, I'm getting that momentum moving forward, I'm brushing the ground. Doesn't matter where I'm brushing the ground, just matters that I'm getting the club to the ground, right? The next piece would be putting the tee in the ground, and now I've got to clip the tee, right? So that means I'm hitting the ground, but I'm hitting the ground in a specific place. That's more difficult, right? It's more difficult to hit the ground in a specific place than it is just to hit the ground in general, right? So now I'm going to hit the ground in a specific place. Once I get 10 in a row doing that, I'm going to take the ball and I'm going to put it on the tee, and I'm going to do the same exact thing. Once I get good at doing that, Then I'm going to take the ball off of the tee. I'm going to hit it directly off the ground. And if you go through that process, I'm telling you, you're going to be able to start the downswing in the correct way. And that's by getting that pressure in that lead foot to start things. Get the downswing starting from the ground up. If you do that, you'll be a much better ball striker. And if you want more drills on how to do this, this is essential for distance, right? There's a big reason why the best players do it, and the best players are fast because they start the downswing in the correct way. So if you want to find more drills just like this one to help you to get more club head speed, I check out the 20-minute distance fix, the sumo step drill that Clay does in there. It's the step drill, very similar to what I just went through here. If you go through this, that step drill and the sumo step the sumo step drill in the 20-minute distance fix course is going to be easy. But we also have other drills, right? We have the catapult drill. We've got the boomerang drill. There's lots of great drills to help you get more speed. So if you want to check that course out, you can click the instruction tab. Then you can click the 20-minute distance fix from there, and you can learn how to start the downswing. Excuse me. You can learn how to start the downswing with some speed. All right, so got a question here from Bill H. What's a good drill to work on tempo? So one drill, there's two drills that I like to do. So one is where we start with shorter swings, and then build up to longer swings. This is basically what I do every time I warm up, because a big mistake that I see with golfers, and honestly, it's to each their own. If it works for you, then that's totally fine. But I think most golfers are going to benefit from starting with like a shorter club and starting with shorter swings and building up the longer swings. But I see a lot of golfers come out there and they just start out with the driver. And if you just come out just starting to rip the driver right away, you could be in a mode where you're really trying to be sped up all the time because you're trying to hit the driver far, and that can throw off everything else. So I'm not a big fan of that. What I like to do when I warm up is I like to start out with a wedge, like a 54 degree, and I like to start out really just hitting like 20 to 30 yard shots, right? So I'll hit a few good ones in a row where I like the contact. And with these, the mentality, most people's mentality isn't to go fast tempo on these, right? Most people's mentality is to go nice and slow and controlled with the tempo, because that's the kind of shot that it is. And then if you carry that same mentality as you go up through the bag, you'll be better off for it, right? So again, I'll start out with those 20 to 30 yard shots. And then once I get a few good ones in a row, what I'll do is I'll see where the next ball ends up, and then I'll try to hit to that one. Then once I get, if I hit a really bad one there, I'll hit one until I get a good one that I'm happy with, and then I'll go to the next ball. So basically, I'm just incrementally moving it up to basically where I'm near a full swing. Then I'll go to probably like an 8 iron, 7 iron, then go to like a 5 or 6 iron, then go to like a hybrid 3-wood driver. That's basically how I kind of work my way up through the bag. But it's nice for the tempo. I actually just played recently, and we had about a 2.5 hour drive to get there, or it should have been 2.5 hours. It ended up taking us like actually like over 3 hours to get there because of traffic. And basically we rolled up 5 minutes before we were supposed to tee off. So there was no warming up. There was no, getting a couple balls beforehand. And this is a busy course, no breakfast ball, nothing like that. I just had to go up there, and it was tough because the whole day I felt sped up. I felt like my swing was just like off, didn't hit it very well. And, and I think part of it was I just didn't have the correct, just my timing and everything was off in my swing. Right. So that's why I recommend doing that. So that's one way you can kind of go through it, is just basically carry that shipping or that short pitch kind of tempo up to, gradually build it up to a full swing, carrying that same kind of tempo. right? Because if you just put the driver in your hand right away, a lot of times people just want to swing fast. And that's basically what happened to me. Driver was the first club that I hit, and the whole day was just I was just trying to find it, and I just couldn't really find it that well. So yeah, didn't have my best round. So another way to do it is to do full swings, but you start out hitting the ball half the distance that you normally would. So an easy way to do that would be like take your 150 club. For me, that's going to be around a 9-iron, right? My 9-iron is about my 155, 160 club. And what I'll do is I'll take that club and I'm going to take a full swing, but I'm going to swing with slow enough that the ball is only going to go about 75, 80 yards, right? I'll hit a few good ones at that length, and then I'll build it up a little bit farther. I'll try to take it up to, closer to 100 yards, right? Hit a few good ones there, then build it up. And I'm actually going to try to build it up to where I'm swinging so fast, right? I'm going as fast a tempo as I possibly can, right? And then somewhere in there, you're going to find your happy medium, right? You're going to find your happy medium of tempo where you're getting the amount of distance that you want, but you also have the amount of control you want. Because really what tempo comes down to is it just comes down to what are you able to control and get the most distance out of? Where can you find that happy medium? That's really what it comes down to. Because if you look at the best players in the world, there's going to be all kinds of different tempos. There are players that have slow backswings and then fast down. So like Colin Morikawa, for example, pretty deliberate backswing and then speeds it up, right? That tempo works really well for him. Jon Rahm, quick, right? Bam, bam. It's fast. It's all the way through. It's fast backswing, fast downswing, right? If you look at like Sungjae Im, he's kind of a unique one. He's slow to here, and then the rest of it's fast, right? The last part of the backswing, and then the downswing's fast, right? So you really have to find what works best for you. There's no one model that everyone has to stick to. You can also play around with slower backswing, right? And see if that helps with your tempo. You can slow down the backswing. You can speed up the backswing and see if you hit the ball better there. So that's kind of the way you kind of have to find your tempo. But those two drills where you are starting out with kind of like a shorter swing, that you don't have the hit impulse to go fast, and then you build it up from there, you'll be in good shape with, right? Thanks, everybody. We'll be back here tomorrow, Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you all next time.